welcome to the Flame and Fiber podcast. This is episode 29. It's Monday, I wrote this down, May 8th. And my name is Barbara. You can find me as Diva S on Instagram and Ravelry. And the Flame and Fiber podcast has a Ravelry group. You can find us on the groups tab under Flame and Fiber podcast. We do have one knit along going on. I'll talk about that later. And we'd love to have you there. I'd like to say welcome to anyone who is finding me for the first time. And thank you to anyone who is a returning viewer. I really appreciate you coming back and spending time with me. So I'm on my 2-week schedule, which seems a little odd. And I'm even going to be a little late with this podcast, I'm sure, because I normally would record it on a Sunday evening, but I got home from Maryland Sheep and Wool yesterday about 5 o'clock and I was beat. That was it. There was no recording. And I thought, I'll get up first thing in the morning, get out of record. No, that didn't happen either. So, but better late than never. And this is the Maryland Sheep and Wool volume 29, or Maryland Sheep and Wool episode. So, and I had a wonderful weekend. I stayed the whole weekend. I stayed overnight, Saturday night, and so I was there both days, and I had a great time, and I will talk about it. I'll talk about it in between other things, and I will talk about it more at the end. Show you some stuff I got. My big adventure. I had a big adventure for me. Probably not a very big adventure for you, so don't get too excited, but it was a big adventure for me. And so anyway, but this is a knitting podcast and spinning, and there's going to be a lot more spinning in the future. It's part of the adventure. And so I want to start with what I'm wearing. I am wearing my Bryce cardigan, B-R-I-S-E, by Hannah Fedek. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of edits around here because I'm going to struggle to get up. I'm going to struggle to show you the sweater. And if worse comes to worse, I'll ask Dennis to take a picture of me. And I'll put a picture in here because it's very possible you won't be able to see much. But I finished it. And I want to show it to you. So, all right. So, this is a close-up of the top half of the sweater. And I will move back further. This sweater is knit from the top down. And then you come back and do the bottom of the sleeves. And so it's supposed to have bell sleeves, but my sleeves, well, let me start at the beginning. I started this sweater 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, I weighed about 25 pounds, at least 25, maybe 30 pounds more than I weigh now. So this sweater is designed to have 5 inches of ease. But I have, I don't know, 25 inches of ease. Now, I asked Dennis, and you know he's a sweetie. I asked him, what do you think? He says it just looks drapey, large and drapey. It doesn't look like like you're sick and you lost all this weight because you're deathly ill or anything. So, all right. So I'm going to cut here again, and I'm going to move even back further so you can see the whole thing. Okay, so here's the sweater. It is very light and drapey. I'm wearing it, it's freezing today, but I'm wearing it with a shell because this is how I'll wear it when I wear it. And I love the way it feels. I love linen. And it is drapey. And I actually wear this kind of sweater all the time in the summertime because I am always cold in air conditioning. So I need something, I can't, although this may actually not be enough because I don't wear shells without a little sweater of some kind on top because I have big old lady arms. So anyway, so this is my Bryce sweater. I'm very happy with it. I will be wearing this sweater all summer. And at the end of the summer, I'll decide if I need it to be smaller. So I'm going to cut here and then come back sitting. So I'm back sitting. Okay, so when I was making this sweater, as you might remember last week, or 2 weeks ago, I was concerned about the striping. And this is the afternoon, and this is daylight it's not like sun coming in my window, but it's a daylight, and you can see those stripes. So I didn't have enough yarn of the same dye lot, and I couldn't get exactly the same color. And so I started alternating skeins, which striped the bottom of my sweater. Turns out that actually doesn't bother me. I don't see it when it's on. I mean, if I look, I can see it, but it doesn't bother me. The size of it is bothering me a little bit, but the striping doesn't bother me. Although I thought it was pretty ironic. I was watching the Knit Girls today, their latest episode, and Leslie is making a linen shell or tank top, and she found some video on how to do a Russian join with this chain yarn. And I did all those little magic knots to not have, because weaving in the ends with this yarn does not look good. I mean, it doesn't work. So, oh well. Now I know for next time I have a lot more of this yarn, and I love the linen, and I'll be making more things. So I will look for that video. And not do the magic knots next time, although I didn't have any trouble with the magic knots, and they seem to be, fine. But I just washed it once. But I washed it under, I think I washed it on cotton, but it may have been gentle. I don't know. But I washed it with a couple of towels. I dried it, and I do think it may have faded the color a little bit. But I love it. And so anyway, after I finished the body, I had one skein of the sort of original color, because I wanted to make sure that I could put do the sleeves without having a line, which I think I managed pretty well. And the collar. And so it turns out that I had like a yard left after doing the collar, which is interesting. It's just a stockinette collar. You pick up and you knit all around, and it's just a stockinette collar, but because it goes the different direction, it makes it kind of, So anyway, very drapey. Everything is a casual on the end. It's just a curled finish. There's no ribbing, anything like that. The front is curled. Everything just does the curl, and on the linen, it doesn't curl too much. So anyway, I had that one skein left, and I was able to do the collar and the sleeves. And so the only time I had to use the yarn that didn't match very well was in those stripes on the body. So I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. But it's too big. I mean, let's face it, it's too big. But I will wear it all summer, and then this winter I'll think about whether or not I want to re-knit it a smaller size. I mean, I knit this a huge size. It's probably 3 sizes bigger than it should be for me now, which means it was probably at least one size too big when I started it. I guess I wasn't sure if I was going to be losing weight or gaining weight. I didn't trust myself. I don't know. But now, but I just kept going. And so now I have a nice drapey sweater, and I will see at the end of the summer how I feel about it after wearing it all summer. So I'm very happy with it. It's just a little big, but since I've been losing a little weight, everything's a little big. Although I did shrink into my small pants. They're not that small, but they're small for me. So that's fun. Going shopping in my clothes too small for me drawer is a lot of fun, let me tell you. So anyway, so this is my sweater, and I was going to immediately change into my grandpa sweater because it's chilly today, but I'm pretty comfortable. I am drinking my tea, and this is, and I can't remember the name of that tea that lovely Sarah sent me from the Short and Stout Tea Company, and I've just put it down there because I will look it up. But it's a wonderful flowery herbal tea, and I'm drinking this in my splurge. So you can see it, my splurge. This is my Maryland Sheep and Wool splurge. Believe it or not, I went past Jenny the Potter's booth and there was only one person in there. Now, her Maryland sheep and wool design was gone by then. I think this was actually Saturday afternoon. But I think you're going to find when they do the final reckoning that attendance was really down this year at Maryland Sheep and Wool because of the weather. It was rainy. It was a little drizzly. It was very chilly, and it had been raining for the whole week leading up to it. And that fairground gets really, really muddy, really muddy. I mean, I wore my galoshes, my mud boots, on Saturday because last year it was muddy and this year I expected it to be even worse. So anyway, attendance was down, but I think she had some kind of rocket ship kind of design or something. Jenny the Potter, that is, back to Jenny the Potter, for her Maryland Sheep and Wool design for this year. But, this is her design that I like the best. This is I don't know why I put that down. This is the birch tree design, which I really like. But, so I walked in and I saw this. The only problem for me is I do prefer at least 3 fingers in my handle, but I really like the mug. So I bought it anyway. And it was only $18. Except when he rang it up, he said $51. I said, $51? Because I had a couple stitch markers. And I said, I thought the mug was 18. He said, no, it's 48. I'm like, well, it is a splurge. It's a splurge. I said, but I'm going to have to change credit cards because I was putting it on the house credit card. A mug for $18, it's a little bit pricey for a mug, but, for the house, but a $50 mug, that's allowance. So I had to change credit cards. But other than that, I had also picked up a couple of stitch markers. And in all that, do you still want it? Oh, yeah, I still want it. Here's my card, all that stuff. He had I assume it was her husband who was checking me out. He had not realized I had the stitch markers, or he hadn't rung them up, and I didn't realize it because so anyway, these are the stitch markers I got. And so Jenny said, oh, here, just take them. And I said, oh, aren't you sweet? I said, well, I have a podcast and I was buying them for a giveaway on my podcast, so I'll just tell them these were donated by Jenny the Potter. So I have 2 stitch markers for a giveaway that were donated by Jenny the Potter. She was very sweet. And this is her card. I don't know how sharp an image that is. But they were both lovely. And the way the 4 was written, the 4 part was pretty light. And I didn't have my glasses on. And it was dark and whatever. But I bought it anyway because it was my splurge. So this is my splurge. I had thought my splurge was going to be signature needle. I decided I was going to go try because Signature Needles had a booth, and because attendance was down, you could actually get to the booth and try their needles. And so I wanted a 40-inch circular size one to do my socks. I thought, wouldn't that be elegant to have a beautiful signature needle for my sock knitting? So I tried it out, but I didn't care for the cord. The cord to me felt a lot like an Addie Sock Rocket cord. So if you like Addie Sock Rocket cords, then you will probably like a signature. But I do not like an Addie Sock Rocket cord. I just gave away my Addie Sock Rocket. So I thought that was going to be my splurge, but this is my splurge instead. And it's beautiful. I really love elegant ceramics. Well, I love ceramic stuff. I took ceramics, a class in ceramics a while ago, but it's been a long time now. So, my first finished object is my sweater. My second finished object is my April socks. These are Mercury socks, which is practically my new vanilla, although I will say that I bought Luli's Simple Sock collection. I'm a big fan of Luli's. I love her podcast. Her podcast was the first one I ever watched and realized it was a knitting podcast and not just some random person talking. I had actually come across knitting podcasts before, but I didn't get it. Hers was the first one that I saw, and I got it. And that's what started me down the podcasting route to watching podcasts. And then, not long after that, deciding, oh, I want to do a podcast. So anyway, I have ordered, I have bought her Simple Socks, and her point is that I want something I can memorize and I don't have to look at the pattern, which is exactly what I do with the Mercury socks. So I thought, well, if, that sounds like just what I'm looking for, because I'm not usually interested in a fancy pattern where I have to look at a chart or something. So anyway, these are my April socks, my Mercury socks by Kim Drotar. And this is fondant fiber sock yarn in the New York at Night colorway. And these are lovely socks, and I'm very excited. So these were entered in the April, these are for me, so they're in my Boxo socks for the Woolen Vine Yarngasm podcast Boxo socks cal, and they got entered in both the Grocery Girls sock bash and the Naughty Knitwits socket knit-alongs. And I just realized that, I don't know why I wasn't paying attention, but the Yarn Hoarder is doing a sock knit-along as well. So my May socks will be going in hers as well. I'm going to be quadruple dipping. But these are for me, and I'm really happy with how they turned out. I was a little concerned about I did a German short row heel on this, and thought it was going to be a little tight. The yarn is pretty stretchy, so it turns out that they're fine. But I am on the lookout for a heel that doesn't pull quite so much across my instep. And my March socks are much tighter. That yarn was not as stretchy, and those socks are much tighter. So I was happy that these are comfortable enough, but I'm still on the lookout for a new heel. And in fact, I'm doing Vanilla is the New Black for my May socks. So fondant fiber. And I am following the example of Chrissy of the Relatively Crafty podcast. And so I did a tiny sock. As soon as I finished my big socks, I did a tiny sock in the same yarn. So I have a tiny sock for the Tiny Things knit along. And so we have a knit along in the group, and basically it's a Knit Tiny Things knit along. It's got one thread, chatter, and finished objects. It's a year-long knit along because I'm trying to get ready for Christmas. I need a lot of little things. I want to do a little advent calendar for my granddaughter. I want to have ornaments. And so I do need to get on the stick. I was looking for some yarn that would be good reindeer yarn for that wonderful reindeer I'm thinking about making, but I didn't find any at Maryland Sheep and Wool. If you can imagine this, well, I'll talk about how that went. But anyway, I forgot what my formula was for these little socks. This was my March sock that I made, and this is my April sock. So I guess I didn't cast on quite enough. So, but it's a cute little sock, and it still counts. So this is going in the thread for the Knit Tiny Things. So those three things are my finished things that I finished since I talked to you last. And I didn't get a chance to work on my Find Your Fade. I'm pretty sure my last podcast I had stopped working on my fade because I had decided to change my color strategy, and I wanted to go into a green instead of what I had picked out. This is the yarn that I had picked out to go next, and there is, there are some orange parts here, and this has orange parts, and I was kind of using that as sort of the relationship. But in the end, and then I was going to go with this. So I have it all balled up and everything, and then I was going to go with this as my final color. And this is what it looks like at the other end. And I decided when I was knitting this latest color, these latest two colors, this is Highland Handmaid's white maple. I'm not sure, red maple. It's the one with bamboo in the Sour Grapes colorway. And then I fade into Woolen Vine Stellar Banshee on her sock, I'm not sure, sock, whatever. I'm putting it there. But in the Stellar Banshee color. And I decided that I really, really wanted, I loved the green, going into the greens here. And so I decided I was going to be looking for some greens at Maryland Sheep and Wool. And this is what I bought for my next color. And this is from Bijou Basin Ranch. And this is yak. Pretty sure. Yak. 25% yak down and 75% yak down and 25% bamboo. So that is going to be a shiny, drapey, amazing next color. And then I found this color, and I was thinking this was going to be my last color, but I'm not thinking that anymore. So I'll talk about this here and later. So now I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I actually am thinking about taking this color, and this color, and just doing something to finish off the shawl with those three colors. So we're really ending with this kind of bright green, maybe doing some stripe thing. I'm not sure. I may be going off the reservation here for the end of my Find Your Fade shawl, because I think I want to end with these colors. And so when you drape it around, you're going to have these colors on one side and these colors on the other, and I think it's going to be beautiful. So I'm not sure what I'm doing, but I didn't actually work on this shawl, but it's one of my works in progress. So this is my next colors, going in with the Stellar Banshee, and I really think I'm going to come, because I have yarn left over from these last, I'm going to have yarn left over from the sixth color. I have yarn left over from the fifth and the fourth colors. And I think I'm just going to, figure out some way to end that shawl using those colors. I might bring in some of the other colors. I don't have all the colors left over because some of them were not full skeins to start with. And some of the early ones, when I didn't have very much left, I put it in my scrappy blanket already and used up every inch of it. So, but I'm going to look and see what I have from the other colors. And right now I'm thinking those last three colors are going to just somehow finish off that shawl. And I think that's going to work. I think that's going to work. Unless I find something else that strikes my fancy in my stash. I don't intend to go shopping for any more yarn for that project. So I didn't really do too much on that. I have two new cast-ons since I talked to you last. I have my May socks. And these are Vanilla is the New Black socks, because I'm working, I'm trying to figure out the heel. Now I have made 2 or 3 pairs of Vanilla is the New Black sock, and it has this snazzy heel that's very roomy. And I'm telling you, these socks are just flying off the needles. What's today, the 8th? I don't, and I didn't start them till the 1st, and I'm not sure I even started them exactly on the 1st, but I've, the heel's in there, and I'm working on the foot. But these just, they're plain. This yarn is Regia yarn, and Jake, 85%, well, 25%. I have it in my stash. I'm just trying not to buy anymore. I'll tell you about that in a minute, too. So anyway, this is Regia. I thought it was going to be more patterned than it is, but it's not quite. So this is Garden Effects, and this is a designer, Kristen Nicholas. But they do the Arnie and Carlos. But this was pretty Garden Effects, and I thought, oh, May Gardens, for grocery girls, you got to tie it into May. But it's pretty yarn, but it's, this is a workhorse yarn, and it's not going to be super warm for me. I like my yarns to have 80% wool. So these are going to be fall socks and spring socks. I could wear them today. Oh my gosh, it's so chilly. But they're pretty. And they are just flying off my needles. I do not know why. I guess I just want to sit there and knit and not think. Well, when I'm tired, I want something that I don't have to think about. This is the pattern for Vanilla is the New Black. And the designer is Anna Fletcher. And I don't think you can see that. There you go, Anna Fletcher. And it says Shanghai Lily. Now, I'm not sure if that's her designer handle or what. So I cast those on since I spoke to you last. And I cast this on. I cast on my Rhinebeck sweater. I've talked to you about this sweater before. This is the Monte Rosa sweater. I should have just printed out the front page again, so it would be nice and lovely to show you. But this is the Monte Rosa sweater by Isabel Kramer. And I have several of her sweaters. I really like her designs. And one of the reasons I cast this on now is because Jenny of Lone Larch Designs is having an Isabel Kramer knit along, but it ends on May 31st. And I thought, oh well, maybe I can. I'm not gonna make it, so I'm not gonna worry about it. But this, I picked this to be my Rhinebeck sweater. Well, I bought this pattern 2 years ago at least. I have had the yarn for almost 2 years, and so I'm just making the sweater I planned on making 2 years ago. Only I'm making a different size. So I started it. The yarn I am using is, let me see, I have this in, oh, I'm so bad about telling you about my bags. Oh, let me tell you about my sock bag, because I did not make this one. This one was made by the Crafty Toads, and it's got bats and owls and eye of newt and toe of frog. Oh, sorry, bat juice and eye of frog. I'm getting it all wrong. So anyway, this is from the Crafty Toads, Toad Hollow NJ. And this is a nice throw in your bag, because it's not really stiff. It's got a nice handle. It's a zipper. It's the perfect size for, oops, a sock project. With a bright inside. This bag I made myself. I don't know why I got in this kick. I was making giant bags, and boy do I need them. I have a couple more cut out. I may just end up sewing those together. But this is where I am so far. I'm knitting this on my Leica interchangeable needles. I finished my oh no, my fade is on Leica too, but they're a different size. So this yarn is Fiber Spates Vicious DK. That lighting is terrible. Fiber Spates Vicious DK. And the colorway, so it's a DK weight. It's 100% superwash merino wool. And this is the color 807 Deep Aqua. This was a a Yarn Box yarn. When I was a member of Yarn Box, well, I'm still a member of their sock club. I may even edit that. How long do I have to think about that? So anyway, this is a beautiful cable-y thing going on. I've just turned the corners, so now I'm doing the front here and the back down here. And this is a tiny little sleeve. The sleeves are stockinette, and then there's garter stitch, and I'm just starting to increase here for the front. Let me see if I can, and this is a nice picture of the back. And so so I've started my Rhinebeck sweater. It is not going to be done in time for the knit along, but I wanted to start it anyway because I wanted this to be the year of the sweater. So I need to make sweaters. I just finished this sweater that I'm wearing, and I wanted to start working on my on this sweater because it's been in my queue for a very long time. This is the first sweater that I have ever made that wasn't plain stockinette. That's not true. I made Isabella sweater with like a checkerboard design. So I've made a couple of tiny kid sweaters. I mean, she's only 3. Tiny kid sweaters with other designs. This is my first major, thing going on with my sweater. And every time you knit in a row, you have 3 charts. How do you manage that? Maybe not having paper. Maybe this is why. Well, I lost my iPad ages ago, so I can't do it on an iPad anyway. So you got the back, you got the front. I think the left front and the right front probably I could get away with just using one of them because they're just mirrored. Well, maybe. But the other thing is that it's not just the charts. You also have to be reading the written stuff because there's no chart for the sleeves, and where I am right now, they're doing sleeve increases. So I have to read the paper, go to a chart, read the paper, go to a chart. So, I don't know. And then I had to sit down and figure out, okay, what row of the chart does this, match? Which I'm not sure why. Well, anyway. So, I'm just complaining. Pay no attention because I'm enjoying knitting it. The only thing is, this is a knit where I cannot be listening to anything. I can't be watching anything. This is when I want to sit and pay attention to my knitting. This is what I'm knitting. And I was able to knit a little bit on it today while I was getting organized and thinking about what I'm going to be doing and whatever. So this is one day getting me started and figuring out what I was doing, and it took me a lot of figuring to figure out what I was doing because like I said, this is the first time I've done any sweater like this. So I mean, I know how to read charts. I've done shawls that needed charts, but I'm not sure I've done ones with multiple charts, but not using multiple charts for the same row. I think that's the thing. I have to look at 3 charts for the same row. Anyway, whatever. I sound so whiny. I'm loving it. I think it's going to be a beautiful sweater. It feels divine, and I'm enjoying knitting it, contrary to the whiny. But, yeah, I don't know where that came from. Why. So anyway, you notice on this pattern, it's got this little color just on the sleeve, on the collar, and around the bottom. Some people actually did it down the button band too. I might look at their project pages and see how they did it. So I was on the lookout for the color I could use, and I really wanted to go with that navy blue that's in this, because this color, it might be black, I don't know, but it looks navy blue to me. And I looked all over the place And finally, I found this color, which is called Atlantic Jack's Blue. So it really is a navy blue. It's the only color I found. And this is a very cool yarn. So I got this at Maryland Sheep and Wool, duh. And this is called Northern Lights. And I had heard of Northern Lights fibers because I was just listening to the Pomcast. Pom Pom Quarterly has a podcast, an audio podcast, and they're sponsored by these people. And so they were talking to them, and they actually did an interview with them. You know, they're really psyched about this yarn. And the deal with this yarn is it says, handcrafted, minimally processed yarns made on Block Island. Each skein is personally handled from dyeing, carding, through spinning, finishing to produce a soft, beautiful yarn. And it's all done on Block Island, which is in New England somewhere. And I guess I'm not sure if it's Rhode Island or Massachusetts. I don't know. But it's Atlantic Jack's Blue, 2 islands, 2 hemispheres, 1 ocean. It's 100% Falkland Islands wool. And it's a worsted. And it is, it's pricey. Because this is a 50 gram skein. Yeah. 170 yards. I'm assuming it's enough for $30. So it was pretty pricey, but I really loved the story, and the yarn is divine. The yarn is really lovely. In a way, it's a little bit of shame just to use, you know, just this little whatever. But anyway, it's the perfect color, and there's no way I could buy, you know, I mean, this was also a splurge, let's face it. But I had taken my swatch with me. I had it in my purse, so this is my, I swatched. I did a stockinette and garter swatch, and so I took this with me and I was able to match it, and I'm really happy with it. So that's exciting, and you know, I love supporting the idea and what they're trying to do with this. I just can't afford to support them more than that, and stay in my allowance. So that's my second cast on since I talked to you last. So those are my only 2 works in progress. It's not true. I have those February socks, but I'm saving those February socks for Stash Dash. And I may not finish my May socks till Stash Dash starts too. Now, I have never participated in Stash Dash. If you're not familiar, Stash Dash is a knit along that the Knit Girls have, and it's Laura of the Knit Girls is a school librarian, and so Stash Dash takes place during the time she's on summer break, which she's always busy with work anyway. But anyway, so it's like starts from May 25th until she goes back to school sometime at the end of August. So it's a summer, you know. Now, I don't have a lot of works in progress that I need to finish up, but it's basically you keep track of your yardage and you're competing against yourself, and you just decide how much you think you can do, and then you try to do that. But it's finished things, so if you've started something and you only have to bind off, I think it really counts. They're soon going to have a podcast just talking about the rules of Stash Dash, which I will keep my eye open for and tell you about. Now I have one more project, which in my mind, oops, can't lose my charts. I won't be able to do a single row. My next needle adjacent project is, I showed you this pattern when I bought it, is this. It's called the Selgri by Claudia Eisenkalb. And it's a nice summer top with a really interesting just a little asymmetrical neckline detail and a little bit of a rib on the sleeve. And it's just a summer top. And I had bought this beautiful, beautiful silk. Oh, I don't have my, I swatched for this too. I don't have my swatch. And this is this beautiful silk at Vogue Knitting Live, and I decided I was going to use it for this project. and called Winter Woods, and it's called Dance Rustic Silk, 100% silk oil from Dragonfly Fibers, which is beautiful, 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 and I love it. But I am not completely convinced now that I am going to do this Cell Gris in this yarn this month, because I bought this. And I really love this color, and I think it would be beautiful. And this yarn this turned out to be my favorite booth at Maryland Sheep and Wool. And I had actually bought some of their yarn last year, which I still have, and I will show you because I bought almost exactly the same yarn again this year because I love the colors. This is naturally dyed yarns. Natural dye yarns is what they call themselves. Oh, shoot. I will put down here the name on their booth. I took a picture of it, but of course I'm recording on my phone. Duh. And these are two ladies but they start with amazing, gorgeous bases, and then they use natural dyes to dye, and they're so reasonably priced. So this is 65% superwash merino and 35% bamboo, and it feels like a dream. It has 500 yards for 4 ounces, so it's a light fingering, and this was $25. So I think, and I got 2 of them. And this is dyed with Osage orange. And she said that that they don't use the fruit from the Osage orange. They use actually the heart of the wood that is used for the dyeing. But I just thought this was such a gorgeous color, and it feels like a dream. And I think it would be lovely for a summer sweater, even though it is wool. So I'm a little torn. I have already swatched in the silk, you know, and you don't swatch lightly. And I've already skeined up all those skeins. I have 3 skeins of that. But I think it'll work for this. Although I could have looked this up before I started podcasting to make sure. Oh yeah, there should be plenty. Plenty, plenty, plenty. So I think I may go with that yellow. Well, you'll find out in 2 weeks, because I will be starting that, since there's no way I'm going to finish that. Since there's no way I'm going to finish that sweater, and this is going to be, once I get past the neckline, this is going to be stockinette in the round. So they're going to be completely different knitting situations, you know, because one of them is going to be sitting on the deck with nobody talking to me while I think about it, and the other one is going to be just watching TV, talking to Dennis, doing whatever it is I want. So that's my projects. So let me talk a little bit about Maryland Sheep and Wool. So I had decided to, when I went to Rhinebeck, I got a room. Rhinebeck is 4 hours away or so. So I got a room, and I got a room for Friday night and Saturday night. But I was so tired, and my hotel was about a half an hour south of Rhinebeck, and I live south of Rhinebeck. And so when I was going to bed Saturday night, I thought, oh, I did everything. I don't want to spend any more money, and I think I saw everything, and, you know, it was crowded. I'm not going back. And when I got up in the morning, I just got up and came home. And I was kind of sorry I did that, because I heard, you know, Sunday wasn't quite as crowded, and I, you know, felt like I had paid for the night and I didn't get my full, you know, adventure's worth. So when I was thinking about Maryland Sheep and Wool, and I thought, you know what? Last year, Saturday was so crowded, and I was tired, and then it's a 2-hour ride for me to Maryland Sheep and Wool. And so I thought, I think I'm going to stay overnight. I can find some place that's relatively inexpensive, I bet, because it's not that far from Baltimore. And so I decided to do that. Well, I think they're going to find, and I probably already said this because I've been thinking it, and I probably said it out loud, that attendance was really down, because the weather, it was cold. It was in the 50s, and it was drizzly and threatening rain and muddy, and so both days it rained and it didn't rain, and it rained and it didn't rain. But some people had umbrellas. I just had a jacket with a hood, and it was enough, so that wasn't the problem. But it just kept people away. And I think the original weather forecast was that Saturday was going to be rainy, but Sunday wasn't going to be so bad. So I think a lot of people didn't come on Saturday thinking, oh, you know, maybe tomorrow will be better. And then Sunday turned out to be cold and a little rainy too. And so I think both days the crowds were down somewhat. I mean, you know, I think, you know, the vendors probably did fine, but I think that their numbers were probably down. So anyway, I ended up getting a room, and but I only for Saturday night. So I drove down Saturday morning, and I got there about 9 o'clock, quarter after 9, something, not quarter after 9, because my car took, you know, I pay attention to the car, and it took me this weird way, and whatever. It's the car's fault that I was late. But it didn't matter. I had bought my entrance fee. They charged $5 this year. They've always asked for a $5 donation, and I have always donated the $5. So for me, there was no difference other than it was a paid admission. And so I paid online ahead of time. And so I had my ticket before I went in. And so I got to go in this faster line, although nobody was complaining about how long it took for them to get in. It you know, really didn't take that long. So, so I did not have any particular plan when I came. Well, I had a shopping list of things that I wanted to, look for. And you saw some of the things I was looking for. I was looking for colors for my fade. I was looking for that navy blue. I was looking for buttons for Dennis's sweater. The buttons are just a little bit big for the buttonholes, and so he's kind of struggling. You know, it's like hard work to get it buttoned and unbuttoned. So he was just putting it on like it was like a pullover, and wearing it buttoned, and then, you know, he decided to unbutton it, and it kind of, you know, he doesn't want fiddly things, and so I either need to find new buttons that are a little bit smaller and smoother to go in those buttonholes, or I need to widen the buttonholes. So I was not successful finding buttons that I thought would work with the sweater. But I don't know anything about widening buttonholes, and it would only need to be just a little, you know, like one stitch, two stitches. So I may be Googling videos in YouTube about how to widen buttonholes and maybe deal with like that. But anyway, so my list was like that. A couple of yarns I was looking for. I was looking for buttons for Dennis, and you know, just trying to keep my eyes open. I was not in the market for fiber. I have a whole closet full of fiber. I haven't been doing a lot of spinning lately, although I have started spinning, and, you know, getting into it a little bit. So I was just wandering around, and I was looking for cool stuff. And I'll tell you the truth, I was looking for cool stuff because we're very close to 300 subscribers. And when we get to 300, there's going to be a 300 subscriber giveaway. And so I was also keeping an eye out for, you know, which is why we have stitch markers from Jenny the Potter. And another thing that I found were these really cool, they're like a shawl pin, but basically it's a rivet. And so it's like a button that's with a screw in the back. It's very kind of weird. And so you get your, it wouldn't be for a very fine, well, now it's not gonna, I should have done this before I started recording. All right. So you have this button, and it has a shank, and I don't know if it'll work on this one because the shank is too big. Yeah, the shank is too big. But you get your your shawl with the 2 pieces, and you put the shank through the knitting like that, and then your other piece, you put the shank through the knitting like that, and if you can find the right hole, I may be just cutting this out, and then it's got a little kind of rubber gasket that you put on the back, and then you screw it on, and now you have a shawl pin that does not. So then you screw it on, and you have a shawl pin that, you know, you have to unscrew it to get it out. But this is the back, so there's your shawl pin on your shawl, and you make sure you don't catch your yarn. So I thought those were pretty, and I thought it was a clever idea. So I got 2 of them, one for me and one for somebody else. So those things were cool. And then I did some yarn shopping. So the other yarn, you've seen a bunch of my yarn. The other yarn you haven't seen is I got this at Backyard Fiber Works. Hand-dyed yarn and knitting supplies. And this is, the base is Orchard, which is 80% merino, 20% silk. And the color is called Trading Post. And I just thought this was beautiful. And this is 600 yards, 150 grams. And I am going to make, I did end up joining the Helen Stewart Shawl Society Part 2. And I really like the shawl, which is called Fairy Hill Shawl. And I did not print it out, so I'll try to put a picture here of the shawl. But I like it in a single yarn, but I want the bigger size. And so she has a 1 skein size and then a small and a medium. And the medium size uses 2 skeins, but she doesn't use the whole skein. She uses 70 grams of each, and I have 150 grams here. So I have no idea if it'll work with this variegated yarn, but I thought I would just make the large size with this 1 yarn, and it's lovely silk and merino. And I love the colors, and so that's my plan. So I'm making the Fairy Hill shawl with this, and I'm not sure when I will be casting that on because I want to finish my fade. But now that I have a plan for my fade, I might actually do that. So I got that yarn. And the other yarn I got, really, I got this from Liberty Ridge Farm and Gardens. This is 85% Polworth, 15% Tussa Silk, 728 yards for 8 to 9 ounces for $30. I got 2 skeins of this. Now, I have some idea I want to dye yarn. This is enough yarn for a sweater for me. So I have an idea that I want to dye yarn, but this is lovely yarn, and I'm wondering if maybe I should have a sweater this color. I don't have one. I mean, I don't have any sweaters. I mean, I have sweaters, but I mean, I'm trying to make a handmade sweater wardrobe, and you know, I might consider just keeping it this color. I'm not sure, but either way, either I'm going to dye it or not. But so this is a sweater quantity for $60, which I thought was very reasonable, and this is Polworth and silk. So so other than the naturally dyed yarns that I bought, that's it for yarn night. So this was my favorite booth, and I sent everybody I could find. I sent them down to this booth, and I forget what they call themselves, but the thing is that they only sell their yarns at shows. They are not online. They do not sell it online. It's just 2 ladies who are doing it for the fun of it, and they sell, but they've been in Maryland Sheep and Wool. They were there last year because I bought yarn from them last year. So this yarn. I was thinking I was going to put it in my fade, but I've changed my mind. I don't think I want to do that. But it is 70% superwash merino, 20% yak, and 10% nylon. This could be sock yarn. I mean, it says it could be socks, but it feels like a dream, and it could be a shawl too. Yak and merino. And it's dyed with indigo and Osage orange. And this has 375 yards for $20. You know, you just can't beat it. So then there are two women, and they, you know, so these two are on the merino yak nylon base. They don't look the same. I bought one of these for me and one of these for you. Some giveaway for something. But these have 375 yards each. One of them's for me. One of them's for a giveaway. And they feel like a dream. They are so yummy. And I think yak is a pretty warm yarn. So this has 10% nylon. The rest of it is wool, yak, and superwash. So we will be looking for that in one of our giveaways. And then I bought these. I just love these colors. And I thought these went together. This is a one-of-a-kind, natural dyed, heathery and variegated color. 65% merino wool and 35% bamboo. This is 950 yards. And this was dyed with madder and cochineal. Cochineal? Which I thought was beautiful. And then this is madder. This is dyed with madder. It's the same base. This has 950 yards, and this has 450 yards, which gives me 1,400 yards, which I thought might be enough for a sweater for me. Do you think I like this color? But if it's not enough for me, this is what I bought last year. I love these colors. And I didn't do anything with it. And now I feel, you know, so that's going to be some gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeousness. So they all go together. They don't match exactly, obviously. They're different. These are completely different, but I love these ladies. I love their bases. Is this the same base? Yep, merino bamboo. And so I have lots of this, and this is going to be something, and I don't know what. It's going to be more than one something. It's going to be a couple of somethings, but it's enough. It's definitely enough for a sweater for me. So yeah, fingering weight sweater. But I just love the colors. So this is it for the yarn that I bought. And I was sending people down to their booth because their prices were so reasonable. You know, they really were beautiful, beautiful bases and reasonable prices. And naturally dyed. I love the colors of that natural dye. This was theirs too that I want to make that thing out of. And this was made with Osage orange. Love, love, love. So I got a lot of yarn there. But I didn't need any fiber, but that didn't seem to stop me. So I did buy some fiber. I really like my Cormo yarn, and I found this. It's got Veggie Matter in it, but I didn't care. It was a reasonable price, and let me see if I can stop it from blowing out. So it's just natural colored. It's got some Veggie Matter in it, but this is roving, so I want to practice my long draw, and so I thought this would be fun to do that, because once I make the yarn, then I can practice my dyeing. And then as I was walking around, I came upon this, which are Leicester long wool locks, And this bag was $10. And I thought, I've always wanted to try spinning locks. And, you know, I don't know, give me a bargain. This is from the Grazing Herd. I don't even know where that korma was from. I'm sorry. This is from the Grazing Herd Sheep and Wool Company in Albright, West Virginia. And this is dyed Leicester long wool locks, 8 ounces for $10. Hard to beat. Let me see if I can see where that other one was from. Oh. This was Dazzy Girl Yarns, Lavender Hill Farms in Lineborough, Maryland. This was a half a pound of roving for $20, which I thought was a reasonable price. But then, so that was on Saturday. So I bought all that stuff on Saturday. I bought this. I didn't buy this. This was free. I don't know why I take these because I don't really read them. They have a booklet that I used. But then I realized I take it because I love the artwork. Look at the cover. Isn't that lovely? But I did not buy a t-shirt or a canvas tote bag. I do not need a canvas tote bag. I have so many canvas tote bags. So anyway, that was my Saturday. So I did all that shopping on Saturday. Well, that's not true. I did buy it. I bought these on Sunday. I bought these on Sunday. I went back to that shop, to the stall with the natural dyes, and I bought more of that on Sunday. But that was the only yarn that I bought on Sunday. And so I went back on Sunday in the morning. I stayed overnight, and when I was leaving, I thought, oh, well, you know, I could just, it's too late to cancel the hotel, but, you know, maybe I shouldn't have gotten the hotel. I could have gone straight home, and, you know, well. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is on Saturday at 11 o'clock. Oh, I forgot all the important stuff about Saturday. Duh. So Saturday, so I got there on Saturday and I did some shopping, and at 11 o'clock at the Buffalo Wool Company truck, there was a stitch marker meetup and exchange. And I had found out about this because I had gone on the thread for the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival on Ravelry because I was trying to figure out if there was going to be a podcasters meetup. And so in the course of figuring that out, and there was, and I'll talk about that, I saw that there was a thread for a stitch marker exchange. And they had one last year, and did you want to do it again? And I'm sitting there thinking, well, you know, my swag is stitch markers. So, of course, I'll go to a stitch marker exchange. Why wouldn't I go to a stitch marker exchange? And so, and that was at 11 o'clock. So I was giving away my swag and telling people, you know, and I'm going to edit right here because I have to go downstairs and I'll get some of my swag so you can see what it was. So this is the swag that I was giving out. It was just a card that talked about the podcast, and then, oh, my little flower stitch marker. Now you've seen me make those in one of my videos when I show you my lamp working. I'll figure out what episode it is and put it down here where you can see where I'm starting the process of making these. I changed it a little bit so that they show better. Doing it sideways instead of flat. I worked so hard to put these on, and then it turns out that they just flip and it doesn't matter. Nothing you can do. So anyway, that's what I was giving out. And so I got all kinds of, I got all kinds of stitch markers, and people had them on cards, and really cute, adorable things. This was a podcaster, Casey Mora, who I did not know who she was, and I have not seen her podcast, but she was a cutie, let me tell you. So I'm going to go check her out. And her podcast is now called Elegantly Amused. I think she changed her name. But isn't that cute that she made? And I got little flip-flops. And somebody gave me a whole set of red, white, and blue for Memorial Day coming up. And sunflower. Really beautiful. So I got a lot of really lovely stitch markers. So that was fun. And I got to foist my swag on people, and they were there for stitch markers, so they didn't mind. And got to meet some lovely women, and that was fun. And that was at 11. And so about 12, quarter after 12, the podcasters meetup was from 2:30 to 4. So about 1:30, quarter to 2, I realized I had bought a lot of stuff. I was really weighed down. Let me go to my car. So because they actually charged admission, you had to get your hand stamped. I don't know if you can see. You had to get your hand stamped to get back in. So I'm going up around where you're supposed to get your hand stamped, and the woman who's supposed to be stamping hands is standing there talking to someone. There were a couple ladies, right there. And I said, "Excuse me, can I get my hand stamped?" And she said, "Oh, just a minute." I'm like, okay. So, it didn't sound like it was a friend or anything. She was giving someone information or something, but I don't know. Felt like you could stamp hands and give information. It's not that hard. And then the women that were standing there said, "We're waiting too." And I'm like, oh, I even tried to cut the line to leave. So anyway, it was only, a little while, and she stopped talking and she stamped our hands. And as we were leaving, I thought, wow, that woman who was in the beginning of the line that I tried to butt in front of looks a lot like Amy from Stalking at Zombies. Little foreshadowing here. So anyway, I'm like, nah, she's too tall. And so I, go to my car, and I'm tired, and I got there a little later, than usual. So my car was kind of far away. So I took the bus to the car and dumped my stuff, and which made it a lot more convenient. Now, I had actually taken a chair, and so I had a chair sitting out so I could have some place to sit and relax. So I went back to my chair, and I sat and relaxed for a while till it was 2:30. And turns out my chair was sitting right next to the place where to the dining hall, which was where the podcasters meetup was. And so I thought, I'll be cool and not just, not go in at 2:30. So like 20 minutes after 2, I'm like freezing my butt off out here. I'm like, that's crazy. I'm going inside. So it turns out it was full of people, but they were just sitting there eating their lunch and stuff. It was, it was like a room full of tables. But in the far corner of the room, I could see Aquila. And Aquila is a young woman. She has a podcast called the Lefty Knitter Podcast. And I had never heard of her podcast until the thread on Ravelry where we were trying to figure out if there was going to be a podcasters meetup or not. And she had mentioned it, I have a new podcast and I would love to go to a meetup if there is one. And so I'm like, she's Aquila Dahan on Ravelry. And I saw I don't know who she is. And so, just piqued my interest a little bit. And then she made a lovely comment on my snow melt project page about my snow melt shawl. And then I'm like, oh, well, she's nice. Let me check her out. So it took a little while for me to find her podcast. I told her she needs to make it easier for people on Ravelry looking for her to find her podcast. But I found it. And it's called the Lefty Knitter Podcast. And she is lovely. I've only had a chance to watch one of them. And her husband makes an appearance, and he's funny. And her lovely little daughter, Hazel, who is adorable. But I really enjoyed her podcast. And so that was fun. I found a new podcast that I like. And I like her projects, and she's lovely. She seems, lovely, enjoyable to listen to, down to earth. I recommend to check it out. The Lefty Knitter Podcast. She apparently knits, and I haven't seen. Maybe she does a little clip of her at some point how she knits. I have to go back to the first one, which is where it would probably be if you're calling yourself the Lefty Knitter, But it's like she knits backwards. It's not lefty like a continental knitter. It's lefty like the opposite of what everybody else does. So that should be kind of interesting to see. So maybe I'll be looking at her earlier podcast and see if I can find what. Excuse me. find one where she's actually showing how she knits, because I'm having trouble picturing it myself. But anyway, when I walked in the door, I could see her across the room. And she kind of looked at me, and she obviously knew who I was, you know, because I guess she had looked me up, and I don't know if she had seen my podcast or not, but she had seen my projects or whatever. So, you know, we like hugged each other like old friends. It was so nice to meet her. And her husband, Johnny, was there, and Hazel, and it was nice to meet them. And, you know, so that was fun. So that was somebody who I recognized right away, and she knew who I was. And so, and you know, so that was easy, you know, because we were both there, and, you know, and more people started to show up, and a lovely woman, Janice. Hi, Janice. Oh my gosh. Janice is I was going to say the only person who I didn't know who she was, who recognized me from my podcast. I couldn't have been more thrilled. She was so lovely, and I'm putting our picture. We got a picture together here, but oh my gosh, it was so lovely to meet you, Janice. It made my day. Totally made my day. And it's the only time that has ever happened to me. And so that was a lot of fun to meet you, and what a lovely woman. And she's so, don't worry, your podcasts are long. I like them long. I'm like, oh, thank you. I do worry, and I'm going long, but you know, it's Maryland Sheep and Wool. I got stuff to say. So anyway, it was so much fun to talk to her and to see her, and it was just a real pleasure. So thank you so much, Janice. I'm telling you, you made my day. It was so wonderful. And I was so happy to meet you and to get to know you a little bit. And I look forward to seeing you again. That was fun. And there were other podcasters there who she knew too. And people started coming to the little corner where we were. And so Jenny and Devin of Handmade and Woolen, formerly Tiny Paper Foxes, were there. Oh, and I guess I'll put a picture here. This is me and Jenny and Aquila. I should have put that before, but anyway. So me and Jenny and Aquila in a selfie. I got selfies with some people, not with everybody. I'm so bad. And I don't think I didn't get one with Maria of Ninja Chicken. She was there. What a lovely lady she is. And she was fun to talk to. And I met someone whose podcast was new to me, Evelyn. And her podcast is called The Thistle Hollow. And I had never heard of that. She has 4 episodes out. And in fact, last night when I came home and wanted to just veg and knit on my socks and not think about anything, I binge watched her 4 episodes. So that was fun. She is living with chronic Lyme's disease, which sounds really hard, really hard. She was in a wheelchair, and she's dealing with Lyme's disease. So, you know, it's really a podcast from a different perspective. It's sort of how do you manage your life, and talking about she's done a couple of yarn crawls and talks about, you know, access to yarn shops and stuff. And you know, when you can walk, you don't think about things like that very often. And so it was but it's not all about that. It's also about knitting. It's about knitting and learning and discovering yarns and rediscovering knitting. I guess she hadn't knit for quite a while, and so now she's rediscovering knitting, and she crochets, and she's doing these adorable animal things. And anyway, I recommend her podcast. I really enjoyed it. I'm a fan. And this is me and her. I didn't get my picture when we were at the podcast meetup, but I did meet her again later, and so I did get my selfie with her. So there she is, and me. And who else was there? So see, I should have been writing things down. So we were standing around talking, and across the room, I see people. I'm like, oh, we're not the only part of the podcasters meetup. There was, you know, because it was a big building full of people. And so there was a whole nother group of podcasters that had sort of congregated closer to the door, who had come in after Aquila and I had come in. They played it cooler than me. I guess maybe they were warmer than I was. But anyway, so Amy of Stockinette Zombies was there. I was right. That was her. But see, when you watch their podcast, they're always sitting down. She's tall. She's taller than me. So I think she's at least 5'8", maybe 5'9", 5'8". I don't know. But anyway, she seemed tall to me when I was walking behind her saying, I'm trying to cut the line. I didn't mean to. So she was there and she was lovely. And I got a selfie with her. And I met a couple other people whose podcasts I haven't checked out yet. And the ladies from Pen, Hook, and Needle were there, and they gave me a magnet, and they gave me a stitch marker, which I'm not seeing. I had it right here, and here it is. So that's Marlisha and Talia. Look familiar? So they were there. Gave me foisted my swag on them. I foisted my swag on anybody who would take it. So anyway, the podcasters meetup was really lovely. And Janice, you made my day. You made my day. And it was so nice to talk to Aquila and get to know her a little bit. Although, it's interesting because obviously we feel like we know each other because if we watched each other's podcasts, most of those podcasters had never heard of me. But I think Aquila might have watched my podcast. But I certainly watched hers. And, but the other people that I met that were not podcasters, but who are thinking about podcasting, and I encourage them to podcast, were Jake and Ray. Jake is the dyer behind Dogstar Knits. And Dogstar Fiber Arts, Dogstar Fiber Arts, but his pin says Dogstar Knits. And he is a wonderful dyer, an indie dyer, and apparently he doesn't live that far. He's only about an hour from me. But he, I don't know if, I love the Knit Girls. And in the last podcast for Stephanie's birthday, Jake made special yarn for Stephanie's birthday at the behest of Rebecca. So, and Jake is also the dyer behind the David Dogdare yarns that he dyed specifically for David for a charity event thing. But anyway, and what a charming guy, and he was so sweet, and his wife was so sweet, and I felt like I'm such a jerk. So I'm standing there talking to Ray, his wife, and I didn't know who she was, but we're talking, foisting my swag on her and talking to her, and I look around and I see Jake there. Now, I didn't know what he looked like, but he's wearing Dogstar Knits t-shirt. And I said, oh, is that the dyer from Dark? She says, yeah. I said, oh, and it's like how rude. I turned back. I said, oh my God, that was so rude. I'm so sorry. She said, no, go. Turned out it was her husband. I was a jerk. It was a jerky thing. But anyway, I got a selfie with Jake, and he was so sweet and so charming, and I think they would make a lovely podcast. And he was saying they're thinking about doing a podcast, and so I encouraged him to do that. But I was talking about podcasting, and I mentioned that, I'm almost up to 300 subscribers, and I'm going to do a giveaway. And he said, oh, I'll contribute a skein of yarn for your giveaway. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Jake. So anyway, so in the course of the conversation, I mentioned, and if you've watched my podcast for any length of time, even if you've just watched this one, that I really don't care for 75-25 sock yarn, and I don't buy it on purpose. Now I have it because I bought it before I realized I prefer more wool in my socks, and I occasionally get it in like my yarn box socks or something like that, but I don't buy it on purpose. Like I was telling him, I love Into the World. The dyer behind Into the World, I think, is a genius. Love their colors. I walk into their booth and everything is a 75-25, and I walk out of there with no yarn. It doesn't keep my feet very warm. So that's why these socks I'm working on now are going to be for the fall. So anyway, so he's like, oh, that's apparently his sock base. But he got 80% BFL, 20%. And I'm so excited. I love BFL. So anyway, we're going to get a skein of Jake's yarn for our 300 subscriber giveaway. So, and we're getting close. We have, we're in the teens to go. So if you haven't subscribed and you have any interest in knowing when I put up a new video, then please subscribe. And when we get to 300, there will be a giveaway and giveaway thread, and do the whole thing to celebrate 300 subscribers. So thank you so much, Jake. And it was so fun to meet you. What a charming guy. And I think he'll make a beautiful. I think it would be a great podcast. I am sure, because Ray knits. He knits a little bit, but not very prolifically because he's busy dying. She knits. He dies. He knits a little, and I think it would be a lot of fun. I would certainly watch it, I'm sure, because he was charming to talk to. So the one other person that I saw that day, which I actually saw before the podcaster meetup, was Christy Glass, and I have recommended her channel previously on this podcast. But so I went up to her and I said, "Oh, I'm a fan," and I gave her my swag, and her daughter was there. And her daughter also knits, so I gave her daughter my swag. I'm foisting my swag on everybody. But anyway, she interviewed me. So if you watch Christy Glass's latest podcast or video on Maryland Sheep and Wool, I'm there. She interviewed me. I'm famous. So anyway, I'm only on for a minute. She was really lovely. She's as beautiful in person and as sweet as she is on her podcast, as you can imagine, and her daughter was just lovely. And so that was fun. So that was my Saturday. I was pretty tired at the end of Saturday, and I thought, well, I guess I'm glad I'm not driving home. So I went to the motel, and I thought, and it's in the middle of kind of a business area, but I didn't see a lot of restaurants. And I didn't want to get in my car again because it was a divided highway and I had to turn around and I was tired. And it turns out in the shopping center next door, there was a Mexican. The guy at the desk said it was a Mexican restaurant, and it was, but it was a Mexican grocery store. And in the back they had a restaurant, and, it was sort of like 50s kitchen chairs. And this was a very, very casual place, mostly takeout. There were a few tables and, a soccer game going on in Spanish, and everybody that was sitting there looked like they knew Mexican food. So I was very happy, and I got a delicious, delicious meal with skirt steak and shrimp, and it was delicious, and it was pretty much on my diet, which was pretty amazing. I did not stick great on my diet because I do low carb, but I did pretty well. Saturday, not so good, but Sunday, not so good, but Saturday I did good. So, and that was good. But I had, the night before when I was making my martini, I thought, if I have to drive someplace for dinner, I can't drink. So I'm going to bring a martini, and I can have a martini in my room while I knit after dinner. And then, and that will be lovely. And so I brought a martini glass, and I brought a martini. And so I had my Mexican food, and I walked back to the room, and I had a martini. And I watched Red, and Red 2, the one with Bruce Willis and Helen Mirren. I love those movies. But I usually tape everything I watched. I don't watch anything live anymore. So, I fast forward through all the commercials and stuff like that. Oh my God, there were so many commercials, but I got a lot done on my sock. So that was Saturday night. And I did get a lot done on my sock. And I got up first thing in the morning, and I got a good parking space. And I thought, well, I'm going to walk around, because I didn't really think I wanted to buy any more, although I did end up buying a little more yarn at that natural dye shop. But I thought, well, I'll go to the podcasters meetup, not to the Stitch Markers Exchange, because they were doing that both days. And, and then I'll go home. And I'll get I did know that saw in the schedule that Franklin Habit was going to be giving a talk about the history of knitting patterns at 1 o'clock from 1 to 2. And I thought, I don't, if I stay for that, then I'll be there till 2. And then I won't get home till 4:30, 4:45. You know, probably not going to do that. So I was wandering around, and it was about 9:30. And I had bought more yarn already at the natural dyed people. And I thought, oh, let me just, you know, look at some animals and do a little more of the sheepy stuff, you know. So I turned into the building where they were selling fleeces. And I have done this before. I did this at Rhinebeck. I did this last year at Maryland Sheep and Wool, you know, because I don't know anything about, you know, and it's interesting to me. So I was standing there and somebody was looking at a fleece and, you know, had it all laid out and a woman was helping her. And I said, you know, is it okay if I watch? She said, oh, yeah, sure. And they started talking to me, telling me stuff. And I said, oh, I've never processed a fleece. I'm a relatively new spinner. And well, I've been spinning 2 years now. So, you know, I'm getting better. I am. And, you know, so relatively new spinner, and I've never done anything with a fleece, but I'm interested, you know, and you know, what would you recommend for somebody who'd never processed a fleece before and spun from their own processed fleece? And she said, well, you know, I recommend a medium length staple wool rather than, you know, you don't want to go with a merino and or a long, you know, whatever. So she recommended a medium. So, you know, whatever. She said, do you want to look at some fleeces? I said, oh, sure. So we looked at a few fleeces and she said, oh, this one, you know, I don't know. This one's not very good. You know, this, you know, I mean, it's okay, but it's not great. And she's looking at another one. And she said, well, you know, it's on Sunday and a lot of people have bought fleeces already. They were here Saturday to find the good fleeces. And I said, okay. She said, oh, but this is a nice fleece. And she's like looking and she says, oh, this is a lovely fleece. And it was a border Leicester. It was gray with brown tips. She says, you know, this is brown, like sun bleached, you know, but it's not tippy. And she's like, all I'm getting is dirt. I'm not getting any tips and not a lot of second cuts. And it looks clean. And she's snapping it to listen for the crackle. And there's no crackle. And it's got a nice ping. And to make a short story long, I bought Katie's wool. Katie was the name of the sheep. And I'm going to put a picture here. This is the one I put on Instagram of the whole bag. And when I was checking out, the woman said, well, somebody had to have this number and somebody, you know, was going to buy it. And I realized my number of my fleece, the number of my fleece was 666. And I said, well, you know what? I'm not superstitious. Like an old poker player said, it's not lucky to be superstitious. So, I'm not superstitious. So anyway, I bought this beautiful fleece from Katie. Katie was the sheep. And when they were talking about sending it to a mill to get it processed. Now, it had never occurred to me to send it to a mill to get it processed, which is probably why I had never really thought I was going to buy a fleece, because I know myself well enough to know, unless I discover some inner sheep person that I don't think exists in there, I don't think I'm going to want to wash and process 6 pounds of wool. And I don't even have any hand cards or anything. I mean, I don't have anything to process this wool with. So they were talking about sending it to a mill, and then you get roving back. And I'm like, well, how much does that cost? And they're like, well, it usually costs, you know, they charge by the pound, but it costs, well, sometimes it costs about the same as the fleece did in the first place. Well, this fleece costs $78 for 6.5 pounds of fleece. Now, so anyway, there were a couple women there when we were looking at my fleece, and they're talking, and you know, and I said, oh, it's my first fleece. Oh, congratulations! I got a lot of that. Oh, it's our first fleece. Oh, congratulations! It was so funny, but I felt like congratulations. I felt like, oh, I'm so excited and very nervous. I'm very nervous. So after I paid for my fleece, I've got my fleece and I'm walking out, and one of the women who had been talking to me before just finished paying for hers, and she's walking. She says, "I'm going to the mill. You want to come?" And I said, "Sure." So we went to the booth of a mill that's very near the festival, and I will put the name of the mill here because I don't have the paperwork here. And they, you know, she had used this mill many times. In fact, they teased her. I guess she had used them once already at that of the festival. I'm not positive, but I thought you were going to your car. You know, nah. So anyway, but this is my friend, and this is her first time. Oh, congratulations! It was really pretty cute. And it was lovely. And everybody who stopped by the booth while we were there were told, "Oh, it's her first fleece. Oh, congratulations." So the people who like fleeces were very excited for me, and it was so much fun. But anyway, so they laid out this fleece, and we started picking through it for, you know, and I don't think they typically do this, but we picked at this veggie matter out of this fleece for an hour. There were, well, 45 minutes. Brenda stayed, the woman who walked me over there. Her fleece was yet to come. She was helping picking, and the woman who worked there was helping pick, and you know, talking to me about the fleece, and she kept going, "Oh, this is a beautiful fleece. This is a lovely fleece. I'm so, you know." So apparently I have a beautiful fleece. It's gray. Oh, I'll show you something. I forgot that part. I showed you a picture, but I decided that I didn't want to have it all. Oh, this smells so sheepy. So I took a nice big hunk of it so that I could process it by hand, because I want to try it. But I didn't want to do the whole thing, because I knew if I did the whole thing, it would be a big mistake. So this is my wool. Isn't this beautiful? Border Leicester. So it's very lanolin-y, and it's got, so anyway. And then she was going through it, and there were some matted parts, and there were some locks that were very matted, and she's like, "Well, you know, these, when they go through, they're going to come through like naps." She said, "Oh, why don't we take these off, and then you can," she said, "Oh, I'm going to take this whole thing off. Then, you know, maybe you can process it by hand and see what you can do with that, because then otherwise it will leave neps in your roving." So I said, sure. So in the end, I took about a pound of Katie's wool home with me. I have ordered the unicorn wool scrub, fleece scrub, or whatever it's called, that was recommended to clean this. And I am on the lookout for some hand cards, because I am going to process this 1 pound of wool myself at some point soon. And I will be getting pin drafted roving back from the mill in about 3 months. So for a minute today, I thought, oh, I could spin and knit my Rhinebeck sweater, but I'm not even going to get my roving until August. So I'm not doing that. But I might do next year's, maybe that's my plan for next year's Rhinebeck sweater, or next year's Maryland sheep and wool sweater, because it's definitely going to have a sweater's worth. Because I'm having 5.7 pounds, I think, is what it is now. And of course, you lose a lot from the weight of the lanolin and that kind of stuff. So I'm guessing I'm going to get about 4 pounds of roving, pin drafted roving, in August. And I am going to try to spin myself a sweater. That's my plan, with my beautiful fleece from Katie. I started that by accident about 9:30, and I didn't get out of there by the time we picked my thing, and I stayed and helped Brenda pick hers, because she stayed and helped me pick mine, but hers had so much veggie matter that in the end she decided it was too much, and so she took it home to pick it at home before she sent it to the mill. So but anyway, so it was about 12:30 when I was finished and leaving my fleece behind with the mill ladies. Ruth Lamb The woman's name is Ruth Lamb. Is that not the best name for a woman who has a wool mill? So anyway, and it was getting close to 1 o'clock when Franklin Habit was going to be talking. And I've never seen him talk. And so I grabbed something to eat real quick. And I went and stood in line. And they did charge $5 for his talk. But he was absolutely charming. What a speaker. Oh my gosh. Any chance I get at another event to see Franklin Habit, I will do it. He was completely charming. Here's picture. I did take some pictures. I didn't get a selfie with him or anything, but I took his picture. He was so cute in his kilt. But his talk was really, really interesting. And he was talking about sort of the history of knitting for pleasure. You know, because before, and it started around the first quarter of the 19th century, that up until then it was a business and you knit because it was your job. And then when the Industrial Revolution came and people's stockings were knit by machines and that kind of thing, then people started knitting for pleasure. And it was really a fascinating talk. And if you ever get a chance to go to an event where he is speaking, I highly recommend it. I will certainly be looking for him because it was really, really interesting. And that was the end of my day. He finished around 2, and I pretty much, I might have taken a short wander before I went home. But I got home about 5. I listened to podcasts on the way home, and I was tired. I was really tired. So, but I had a wonderful time at Maryland Sheep and Wool. Thank you to everyone who took my stitch marker and said hi and was so kind. And I had a great time. And it's interesting that you can go to something like Maryland Sheep and Wool, and I didn't really know anybody. I went by myself, and I had a wonderful time, and I met a lot of lovely people. I bought a lot of lovely yarn, and I'm so excited about my fleece. And hi, Janice! I'm so glad to meet you. And everybody else. I just really, it was wonderful. And anyway, so that's the wrap up of Maryland Sheep and Wool. I actually have some goodies that have come in the mail since I showed mail goodies last, but I am saving them for next week because other than the wool wash, I'm not expecting anything in the mail in the near future, so I'm going to try to spread it all out. So I will say goodbye. Thank you so much for watching. I am, hit subscribe. We'll get to 300 sooner. And I hope you have lots of time in the next 2 weeks to do all the crafting that brings you joy. And I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.